We'll go ahead and get started. All right. And we are live. Again, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining today's solicitation web event for the OJJDP fiscal year 2021 family-based alternative sentencing program solicitation. My name is William Moore with OJJDP's INTAC, and before we get started, I want to go over a few reminders for today's web event. The first reminder is to remember that we are recording today's web event. The event is being recorded and will be published on, may be published on OJJDP's multimedia page. On OJJDP's multimedia page, you can view additional webinars on juvenile justice and child victimization prevention related topics. If you would like to access any of those supporting materials transcript, you can contact the OJJDP TTA Help Desk at the email address on this slide. If you're having any trouble downloading event materials, including the file transfer box that I just put up, please note that we will put shortly in the chat a Google Drive link where you can either click on the link or do a copy and paste of the link into your browser, and there it will allow for you to easily get access to those that webinar PDF there. If neither of those work, you can send me a message and I can help you get access to those materials, or you can contact the help desk and we can get you access to that PDF. For optimal audio, we are asking for you to do either of these options. Either utilize the computer audio or you can have the WebEx system to dial out to your phone line. When you're connected, you will see either a headset icon or a phone icon appear to your name in the participant panel. Please note that all participants are on mute when they come into today's web event. You can utilize the chat in order to communicate with the presenter or with us during the web event. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties or need assistance, please send a direct chat to me. Technical issues, that is. Now, during today's web event, please note that the presenter will be answering your questions when we get to our Q&A portion of today's webinar. To answer the questions, or submit your questions, excuse me, you'll go to the chat window and then you will type in your question. However, before you hit send, make sure in the to button that you select either everyone or all panelists. And I'm going to repeat that. Before you submit your question, please make sure in the to field you send it to either everyone or all panelists so that we can make sure that we capture all your questions that are being submitted during today's web event. Help us count. If you're viewing alone by yourself, there's no need to type anything at this time. However, if you're viewing in a group, meaning it's more than yourself in a group viewing today's web event, please go to the chat window and type in the total number of additional people in the room with you today. For example, if it's yourself and your project manager or an affiliate with your organization that's viewing, you would type in +1 to indicate that additional person that's there, or +2 or +3. Do not count yourself. Again, if you're by yourself, there's no need to type anything at this time. All right, and that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn today's web event over to our presenter, Catherine Berry, to take us through today's presentation. And Catherine, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Great, thanks, William, and welcome everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your Friday to be present during this webinar. Again, this is the family-based alternative sentencing program solicitation webinar. So if you're here to learn more about family-based alternative sentencing programs in general. That is not what this webinar is going to tackle. This is a grant funding opportunity for family-based alternative sentencing programs, and we're going to be going over the nuts and bolts of the solicitation. So this is just a very high-level overview of the topics that we're going to be covering today, which is going to be a general overview of the program, the goals and objectives of the program, and then also application requirements. So this is a direct link to the solicitation online. And I wanted to highlight, and we'll go over these a little bit later, that there are two different application deadlines. There's a first grants.gov application deadline, which for those of you who are familiar with writing grants and submitting grants, this is kind of similar to submitting an intent to apply. So there's a first deadline on July 2nd where you're going to be submitting some very simple information, not your entire grant application, simple information that is demonstrating your intent to submit a full application in our Just Grant system. And the full application will be due later on July 16th. And I'll go over that a little bit more later in case you have additional questions around that. So this is going to be a 3-year grant program. So awardees will be awarded awards up to $750,000 spread over a 3-year period. So just want to make sure that that's clear to those of you who are new to submitting federal grant applications, that you're given an award up front, and that's expected to be spread over the course of a 3-year period. And the overall goal for this program, and keep in mind, this is a brand new program for OJJDP, and I believe just a brand new federal grant program in general. So this is the first year we are offering the family-based alternative sentencing program, and we're really excited to have it kind of under our wing this year. But the overall goal is going to be to support states and community as you decide to develop perhaps a brand new family-based alternative sentencing program in your community, or maybe you have an existing program that you would love to have some funding to enhance. But the expectations are that these programs are intended to divert convicted parents or primary caregivers from the prison system, so from serving out a sentence in prison, in order to keep families together. We want to make sure that those parents are able to stay with their dependent children and prevent them from perhaps entering the foster care system and or perhaps becoming juvenile justice involved. Now, under this solicitation, there are going to be 2 categories of funding. So category 1 are going to be for those of you who are seeking to perhaps develop and implement a new program in your community or enhance one that you already have in your community. Category 2 funding are going to be for applicants who have experience providing training and technical assistance to programs that are either family-based alternative sentencing programs or similar in nature. So I'm going to start by going over category 1, and we'll first go over applicant eligibility. So this is a list of all eligible applicants. If you notice, they are all government entities. If you are a nonprofit organization, unfortunately, you are not eligible to apply as the lead applicant, but fear not. Our expectation is that if you are a nonprofit in this space already providing these types of services, you likely already have a partnership with a relevant government entity in your jurisdiction, in your community. We fully expect there to be cross-system collaboration, and a government entity is allowed to apply as the lead applicant and sub-grant or sub-award out funds to a nonprofit organization who they intend to carry out the program activities. So I wanted to say that up front because there are some nonprofits on the webinar, I didn't want you to get stressed out. And I can talk a little bit more about that in the Q&A if you want to talk through that some more. Now, Category 2 applicants, these are our training and technical assistance provider applicants. The eligibility is quite different. We do have a lot of nonprofits that apply for these types of funds, as well as private institutions of higher education, for-profit organizations. So your list of eligibility is quite different, but I'm not going to go over all of these categories. Just make sure that you fall within one of these eligible categories before you apply. Now, this really applies to our Category 1 applicants, but if you are a law enforcement agency applying as the lead applicant, there is an executive order out that will require that you be certified by an approved independent credentialing body, or that you have at least started the process. So just make sure that you have that certification, or you will or start the process of that certification, and there's a direct link here for more information on how what that requirement is all about and how to make sure you are meeting that eligibility requirement. All right, back to Category 1. So I'm going to just kind of generally go over kind of expectations, goals, and objectives of this category. And keeping in mind that this is a brand new program for us this year, and we're just really excited about kind of the outcomes that we are hoping, the family outcomes that we are hoping to see from all of you applying to this funding opportunity. The overall goal, as I've already kind of alluded to, is that we are going to be supporting you in either establishing a brand new family-based alternative sentencing program in your community, or helping you enhance your existing program in the community. And these programs really are to be focused on parents who are in the criminal justice system, have been convicted of a crime, and we are wanting to divert them from a prison sentence in order to keep them with their children, which ultimately will improve child, family, and parent outcomes. So a system impact, which I will constantly allude to all throughout this presentation, because it was a part of the funding that was given that Congress really wanted these programs to evaluate the impact of these programs on the criminal and or child welfare system. So we're hoping that these programs as a system impact will reduce that financial impact on those systems. And I'll get into a little bit later the research partner component for Category 1 applicants. So programs applying for this category of funding, we really expect the objective for you is to be providing treatment and accountability to the parents and or primary caregivers in your program that have been convicted of a crime, but allowing them to remain with their children under supervision, but while also being wrapped around the support and services to address their needs, their children's needs, if they have a substance use disorder, that you're helping them get the treatment and getting them in recovery. If they need some vocational support, educational support, employment, housing, you're wrapping them around with everything that they need to succeed in the community. That is the primary purpose, keeping families together while wrapping the entire family around with supports to improve outcomes for not just the parents, but also the children involved. Our expectation is that you're not working in a silo, that you are partnering up with everyone that's touching this family. So that cross-system collaboration is key. So we expect to see in your applications that you intend to partner or are already partnering with relevant agencies and community service providers. There's a non-exhaustive list here, but we really do expect that you are partnering with folks that are touching the family, so child welfare, DOC, and other treatment providers. So here's that partnership expectation with a research organization. We really, this is a part of the funding. It's required to receive the funding that you find a research organization or an evaluator that will evaluate your program to demonstrate the extent that there are any cost savings for the criminal justice system or the child welfare system in the long term. You don't have to detail exactly what the researcher is going to address in your application, but we need to see that you have identified a research partner or you're in the process of identifying a research partner that will be able to carry out the objective of evaluating financial impact on the criminal and or child welfare system in your jurisdiction. These are some of the deliverables we expect for Category 1 awardees. Once you are awarded a grant, these are kind of the expectations that we are going to be looking for once a program starts implementation or your enhancement activities. So be sure you are familiar with the deliverables. These are all directly outlined in the solicitation, but I will point back to the research component that we will expect at the end of your award that you submit a program evaluation that, again, demonstrates that kind of financial impact of the program on the criminal justice and or child welfare system. You are allowed to allocate a pretty fairly sizable portion of your budget toward evaluation. So up to 35% of the funds you are allowed to allocate in your budget and put it in there as a line item. All right, now I'm moving on to our Category 2 applicants. These are our training and technical assistance providers. The goal of training and technical assistance for this particular program are going to be assisting those grantees that are either implementing a brand new program or enhancing their existing program, and helping them in the development and implementation of what they propose to OJJDP, and make sure that they are positioned for long-term success. So I'm not going to go over all of the assistance activities. Hopefully, if you are a TTA, as we say for short, applicant, you're very familiar with what we kind of expect as far as assistance for these types of programs. The training and technical assistance providers applying for this category, we really do expect that you have training and technical assistance experience. So assessing training needs, collaborating with the relevant practitioners in this field that you are already kind of have your ears to the ground and are familiar with practitioners and entities that are doing work in this field. You have experience developing and hosting peer-to-peer training opportunities, and that, of course, after each training opportunity, you are conducting follow-up and evaluations to get that feedback and make sure that you are, in fact, addressing TTA needs in the field. We will expect that you develop a training and technical assistance strategy, as well as what we call a prioritization approach with the grantees that you are assisting, and really understanding and assessing their needs and kind of going from there. Other expectations are that we are going to want all of our OJJDP training and technical assistance providers to coordinate and collaborate with one another, and so that everyone's on the same page. The folks that are doing similar and related work, especially our family drug court program, training and technical assistance provider, as well as our juvenile drug treatment court training and technical assistance provider. We have a number of initiatives that are all kind of intersecting in this work, and we expect that the TTA provider that is awarded under this solicitation will collaborate with other providers to improve outcomes for children, youth, and families, in particular affected by substance use and or co-occurring mental health disorders. So these are all of these deliverables are listed in the solicitation. This slide, as well as the next slide, basically kind of just bullet out all of the deliverables that are already in the solicitation. But I did want to kind of maybe hone in on some of the really important ones that I just wanted to clear up or just make sure you're aware of when you're writing your application. First and foremost, the expectation obviously is that the TTA provider here is going to assist our OJJDP grantees under this program. So you're really going to be digging in and working with them a lot on helping them implement or enhance their programs, and as well as helping them perhaps, hopefully, developing sustainability plans for when the federal funding ends. That being said, since this is a brand new program and there is very little out there about family-based alternative sentencing, believe me, I did the research before we wrote and drafted this solicitation. This is a very newer type of programming, and there's not a lot of tools out there. I couldn't find a whole lot of articles or publications around in this space. And we would really like the training and technical assistance provider to also take that on as well, to develop tools for folks that want to replicate this model, to write those publications and to work with the OJJDP federal program manager, which right now is me, to come up with ideas on what does the field need in this space and how can we promote this model to the field. So again, the list of deliverables for the TTA provider kind of goes on, but it does reference, what I just discussed, but I would also point out some of the, for lack of a better term, marketing that we would love for this TTA provider to do and really do expect the TTA provider to do is to participate in conferences, work groups, anything you can to speak and present on this program or issues impacting parents that are in these types of programs. That is the expectation, is to kind of get the word out at a national level any way you can, not just publications, but also speaking engagements. So these are just some of the general training and technical assistance standards that all TTA providers that are awarded funds must comply with. There is a expectation that you coordinate with the OJJDP INTAC. We're used to calling them INTAC, but they are the National Training and Technical Assistance Center. They are the wonderful folks that are helping host this webinar today and providing all the technical assistance today. There also is an expectation that your webinars go through INTAC, through our OJJDP platform. And also there is a information sharing requirement. Training and technical assistance providers really are supposed to be keeping us updated and keeping the system. We have it's called TTA 360, updated with all of your events so that the entire field can know what you are doing in this space as far as training and technical assistance. All right. So I'm going to spend the next couple of slides discussing the Office of Justice Programs priority areas for applicants. These priority areas pretty much really only apply to our Category 1 applicants, even though it doesn't really clearly indicate that in the solicitation. But as I go into the priority considerations, the TTA provider applicants on this webinar will understand why these probably really only are going to be able to apply to our Category 1 applicants. So applications that demonstrate that they are advancing one or more of these bulleted areas listed right here will receive priority consideration. The key is that you have to make sure that you write a very solid narrative demonstrating each of the different areas here that you would like to receive priority consideration under. We didn't define what sufficient means as far as a sufficient explanation, but I would say that I would treat it like you're writing a term paper, and if you're going to cite or state information, you need to make sure you have a citation after it, or that you have a source that you can point to that backs up your statements. Data is always great too, if you want to use that in your narrative explanation. And what you'll do is you'll put that all in an attachment. You'll label it OJP priority consideration, and you upload that as a separate attachment to all your other attachments in your application. That's not the only area where you can receive priority consideration. If you're, and you can submit more than one. So you can submit consideration under one or more of these areas, and then if you qualify also as an area of high poverty, or you're in a persistent poverty county, you can also submit that. So submit all priority considerations that you are eligible for. The key is to make sure you are accurately documenting that you are eligible for it. So under if you're serving a high poverty area, in the solicitation, there is a direct link to the census where you can find that information for your area. For the high poverty areas, it's usually under zip codes, and you cut and paste that information into a Word document, and you list it as, this is why we are eligible for high poverty area priority consideration, and you directly cite that census information. That also goes for persistent poverty counties. If you qualify as serving participants in a high poverty county, there is another census link in the solicitation. Cut and paste that information directly into a Word attachment and put it there. We are not going to search the census for you. So it's not enough to just say, yeah, we are a high poverty area. You need to go to the census link and actually cut and paste and put that information in a attachment and upload that as an attachment as proof for each of these different areas. So just make sure that you do that and that you're not just saying, yes, we serve the area. We need to actually see the proofs because we're not allowed to go search the census for you. We're only allowed to look at what you have submitted in the application. Now, that being said, definitely apply for all the priority considerations you can, but it does not mean that you will for sure get an award. It'll just put you in a different category, and it definitely helps boost your application if you are tackling these different areas. Now, for those of you who are applying under Category 1, circling back to that partnership with a research organization requirement, if you're wondering, well, how do I demonstrate that I have met that requirement? You must narrate a detailed plan in the project design and implementation section of the required program narrative in your application. So that's where you're going to detail and document that you have said partnership with a research organization, or detail at least your plan to partner with a research organization. So all applicants, including the training and technical assistance provider, are going to be expected to track and collect performance measures that have been written and designed for this particular program. So it is important that you are thinking now about how, if you're not used to collecting data, you're not used to tracking performance measures for your programs, that you start thinking of a data collection plan now, because that is actually a part of your application. It's a small little part of the narrative part of your application where you do have to detail a plan to collect data and report on performance measures for this solicitation. If you want more information on OJJDP performance measures, expectations, guidance on how what your data collection plan should look like, this is a direct link to our performance measures site. And I also think you might be able to get a preview of the expected performance measures for this particular program. Now, at the very end of the solicitation online, there is an application checklist that I always like to point out in these solicitation webinars. Please use it. It's an excellent way to make sure that you have every single thing required for your federal application. I used to be a grant writer before this, my current position, and when we applied for federal opportunities, I printed out this checklist and physically put check marks next to things as we were able to complete them, so that when it came to application submission time, I could just physically see in the system and check off the application checklist. We have that. We submitted that. It's in there. So please use that. It's there and it's useful. And I'm not sure how many people actually do use it, but I think it's a great way to make sure you have all the required documents. Speaking of required documents, there are 4 critical items that you need to make sure. If there's anything that you forget, it's not this. It's not the project abstract, it's not your program narrative, and it's not your budget detail worksheet. And if you're a Category 1 applicant, it's not that little piece that you write in your program design and implementation section about partnering with a research organization. So these are the 4 requirements for Category 1 applicants that you have to meet in order to even have your application reviewed. So if you're not going to use the checklist, at least use this 4-item checklist. We call it BMR, or Basic Minimum Requirement Checklist. Make sure you have these items. Now, for your TTA provider applicants, obviously the 4th item does not apply to you, and you would just have to make sure you have the project narrative, abstract, and budget detail worksheet to make it to review. So I'm going to circle back around to this 2-part application process that is new to the Office of Justice Programs this year. I think that it has confused some applicants, particularly folks that have applied to our federal funding programs in prior years and they weren't aware of the new process. So there is a first deadline. So there are 2 different deadlines. There's one deadline in grants.gov where you basically have to submit an intent to apply. You're going to be submitting an SF-424 form, which is a very simple document where you just indicate your agency, your organization, information about the agency that's applying, and then you also put in there how much federal funding you intend to apply for. Very simple. It's not asking you for any other application attachments or a narrative or anything. Just how much are you going to plan to apply for? And then it also asks you for an SFLLL form, which is basically just a lobbying disclosure form. It's also a very easy form to fill out. So don't fret on that first application deadline. Just make sure you get it done. Because if you don't submit that information by July 2nd in grants.gov, you will not be able to submit an application period by the July 16th deadline in Just Grants. I had one unfortunate applicant for a different program that was not aware of the grants.gov deadline, and they were getting ready to submit everything in Just Grants and didn't realize that there was this grants.gov deadline, and there was nothing we could do for them. You have to make sure you apply for that first deadline. If you're worried about not really necessarily having your budget finalized and you're not sure that what you submit in grants.gov is exactly what you intend to apply for, say we have the awards under the solicitation for Category 1 are up to $750,000, and you submit your SF-424 form for the grants.gov and you put in $700,005, right? And then you realize as you're, finalizing the budget that you really actually kind of wanted to ask for a little bit more than that, or maybe a little bit less. You will have the option when you submit your entire application in Just Grants by that July 16th deadline to make adjustments. So don't worry about that. Okay, so these are just some additional tips that I like to give folks as they're writing their grant. This can be very useful for those of you who have never applied to a DOJ or OJP solicitation. What I would advise you to do, and this actually could also be for some of you who have, but what I would advise you to do is for sure take a look at the Grants 101 website that we have that really gives a great overview of expectations, how to write a great federal grant, things that you might not have even thought of before. It's not long, it's a really good overview. If you're new to applying for federal funds, you really must start the process of acquiring a DUNS number if you do not have one already. You need to do that now because that takes a while, as well as registering with SAM and registering with grants.gov. So that's the first order of business. Like, put everything down, don't start writing your grant. You need to start acquiring a DUNS number, register with SAM, and get an account with grants.gov. because this can take up to 2 weeks, business days, actually, to complete. My other advice is to read the entire solicitation from beginning to end. We often get questions that can be answered if you read the solicitation from first page to last page. So make sure you're reading the entire solicitation before submitting questions to us. If you haven't already, start identifying and contacting the relevant project partners now for your application, and request letters of support. Letters of support are not required, but I will tell you, peer reviewers love to see them. So if you can get letters of support from project partners, peer reviewers love to see them, so get those. Other tips are make sure you're answering each of the questions that are in the solicitation, as well as following the order of review. So there's a particular order especially for the program narrative, that they want you to go in and that they want you to address. Follow that order and make sure you have very clear subheadings. It'll make your application really easy for a peer reviewer who is scoring your application to check boxes and say that you met particular requirements and expectations for each section. Another part to the program narrative is make sure you also clearly understand the score weighting that is in the solicitation. It gives you what each section is worth in the scoring. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you dedicate page number real estate to the sections that obviously are going to be weighted the most. Any section that is only worth 10%, I wouldn't advise you to write, like 15 pages on. So just make sure you understand that when you're writing your app. It'll help you write your application and understanding how much information you really need to write for each of those sections. Draft your budget early. For me, we always drafted the budget first when writing grant applications, because then once you had the budget in place, it made writing the program narrative very much easier. I already mentioned physically check off every item on that application checklist that is given to you. And then I would also aim to submit that application a couple days early. Don't submit it on the day that it's due, because if you end up having technical issues, you're going to get really stressed out. And you're going to want that buffer to feel like you got everything in on time. Granted, if you do have technical issues that are totally not your fault on the day that it's submitted, generally those folks are still allowed to apply after the deadline, but you don't want to be stuck in that situation. So I would always aim to apply a little bit early to make sure that you can address any kind of technical issues or errors that might occur. These are just some useful links, a direct link again to the solicitation, as well as the grant application resource guide that is cited all throughout the solicitation. Definitely take a look at that grant application resource guide and read it. Wherever it is linked in the solicitation, you should be going to it and seeing what it says, because it'll have some really useful information that'll help strengthen your application. So if you need technical assistance with grants.gov, here's their direct information. I would advise calling them. Email is, slow, and I know when you're working on an application, you want an answer right away, but there are several different ways that you can reach the grants.gov help desk. Stay connected with OJJDP. If you decide after this webinar, no, I'm probably not going to apply for this program, you may be interested in some of the other work that we are funding in this space. So these are all of our different platforms, online platforms. So please sign up, be a part of our community. We would love to have you. And with that, I think we can start questions and answers.
Right. Thank you very much, Catherine. And again, to the audience there, when you get a chance or if you'd like to, you can submit your questions in the chat. Before you hit send, make sure you select all panelists and or everyone before you submit your question. We'll start off with some pre-submitted questions that we've received, Catherine. So the first question here, can more than one entity partner and carry out the award?
Of course, and I already alluded to this during the webinar. We actually love seeing applications where two or more entities are collaborating to carry out the program proposed in the application. The only caveat, as I mentioned, is that there can only be one entity, one lead applicant that applies for the funding, and that entity is going to be the one that's legally responsible for the award funds that signs the award. All other partners that are listed or mentioned in the application can be subrecipients, which means they can still receive federal funds. They would just be a subgrantee listed in the budget that the lead entity manages.
Awesome. Can you go over eligibility again?
Sure. So for Category 1 applicants, those of you that are seeking to perhaps implement or enhance a family-based alternative sentencing program, these are limited to government agencies, so state, special district, city, county governments, as well as Native American tribal governments. And as I already mentioned, though, and I keep trying to allude to this because I know there are some nonprofit organizations doing this work, nonprofits are not eligible to apply, but you certainly can be a subrecipient or subawardee under a lead government entity that applies. Partner up with a government entity that you're already working with, get them to apply for you. For example, I have a family drug court grantee. The county applied, but they primarily subaward most of the funds to a nonprofit organization in the community that runs the family drug court program. So that is perfectly acceptable. For Category 2 applicants are training and technical assistance provider applicants. That list is very different. That can be public and state controlled institutions of higher education, Native American tribal organizations, nonprofits with or without 501(c)(3) status, as well as private institutions of higher education and our for-profit organizations as well.
Thank you. Next question here. In light of the pandemic, would this support virtual interventions? Would this solicitation support virtual interventions?
Definitely. OJJDP has been very understanding with current and future programs during this time, and many of our programs have had to adjust to a virtual environment, and some of them actually have figured out a way to perhaps never even go back. Some of the virtual strategies that they have implemented have actually ended up enhancing some of their programs. So for sure, we do expect that, especially for our Category 1 grantees, that you will be, you may implement some virtual strategies in your program. With that too, we also expect our Category 1 grantees to work closely with the training and technical assistance provider throughout the grant period for any assistance they may need in light of the fact that we are still in a pandemic.
Thank you. Will this program fund new or existing family-based alternative sentencing programs?
Yes, for sure. I think that for some folks, some questions that came through, they weren't sure if this was only for new programs or if it could enhance existing programs. So it could be for both.
Thank you for that clarification. Now, in regards to funding, is the funding $750,000 per year for 3 years, or is it $750,000 total over the 3 years for Category 1? And the same question for Category 2.
So for Category 1 applicants, and I tried to make this clear in the beginning of the solicitation, you're going to be applying for up to $750,000 spread over a 3-year or 36-month project period. So it's most certainly not $750,000 per year. It's $750,000 up to $750,000 spread over a 3-year period. And the same goes for our Category 2 applicants. It would be $500,000 spread over a 3-year period.
All right. Is there a match requirement for this funding?
There is no match requirement for either category of this solicitation. However, if you volunteer a match amount in your budget, you should be aware that if that budget with the voluntary match is approved, that match then does become mandatory and subject to future audits. So just keep that in mind as you're developing your budget.
How will I be notified if my agency is selected to receive an award?
So both the point of contact as well as the authorizing official that you list on your grant application will receive an email award notification, which will provide further information on procedures for receiving the funds. And generally, these awards go out on or sometimes before September 30th of 2021.
Okay. And the, I guess, opposite end of that spectrum, Catherine, how will I be notified if my agency is not selected to receive an award?
So the point of contact and the authorizing official listed on the grant application will receive an email notification as well as a summary of the peer review comments by October 30th, 2021, if you are not ultimately awarded. So that being said, you know, if you haven't heard anything by September 30th and you have, you know, you're not really sure, keep an eye out for announcements. Generally, OJJDP likes to announce grant awards. So you never know. Maybe we're running behind on being able to notify awardees. So the goal is always to notify everybody by September 30th. But for sure, if you weren't awarded, you will hear by October 30th.
All right. Will OJJDP make a list of evaluators available to potential Category 1 applicants who are looking for evaluators to partner with?
Unfortunately, that is not something that OJJDP will be doing to provide a list of potential evaluators. Generally, we have to kind of put that on the applicants to do their research on potential evaluators. What I would say, if you do your research and you're not really coming up with anybody that you find to be particularly promising, for sure detail a plan to partner with a research organization and an intent to partner, and perhaps you know, carving out a part of your budget for an evaluator show that you're showing every effort and intention and commitment to partnering with a research organization or evaluator.
Okay. And it looks like, Catherine, that is the last question that we've received for today's presentation. So I'd like to turn it back over to you if you have any last statements or closing remarks you'd like to provide to the audience.
Sure. I would just like to say if as you're writing your application or you're trying to figure out and strategize your program and questions pop up, please utilize the Response Center and send them an email and ask those questions, because they eventually come to me, and I'm able to provide you with some pretty detailed and answers that will help you along the way. So the Response Center is your friend. No question is too simple. We want you to ask the questions and encourage you to ask questions.
Okay, great. So that being said, I'll go ahead and take back over control of the presentation here and say thank you to our presenter, Catherine Berry, for providing wonderful information related to today's grant solicitation. Before we let everyone go, just a few last-minute announcements for folks to keep in mind. Please remember that OJP is accepting applications through its Just Grant system, and again through the PowerPoint that you all have access to. And here, let me actually put the PowerPoint back up here. The PDF for folks to get access to that has those clickable links there. I've put that up, and then my co-host will go ahead and place the Google Drive link where you can access the PDF to this presentation as well back in the chat. But this is where you can find information about Just Grants. Please remember that if you'd like to get in contact with INTAC, you can reach out to us through this URL, sign up for our listserv, check us out on Facebook. If you would like to get in contact with OJJDP's TTA Help Desk, learn more about JuveJust or any upcoming events, the information is on this slide where you can get access to all of those resources. Do you have a training and technical assistance need? Please submit a request through the OJJDP TTA 360 platform. The URL to access that platform is located on this slide. And as a reminder, as I said earlier in the beginning of the webinar, please note that on OJJDP's multimedia page, you can access past webinars that have been archived related to juvenile justice and child victimization prevention related topics. If you'd like any supporting materials, you can reach out to the help desk to get access to those items. And finally, I'm going to do one more poll question for the audience, where we would like to know, how do you plan to apply the knowledge that you've learned in this web event? You can go in this poll question, you are allowed to select multiple options here, so feel free to click as many options as you would like to indicate how you plan to apply the information you've learned here today. That being said, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining today's web event. Take care. Bye, Catherine. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everyone.